They say love is loud fireworks, grand gestures, shouts across balconies in the rain. But not all love lives on the surface. Some of it is quiet, tucked beneath the ribs, humming like a secret song that only one heart can hear. She was light, laughter, and motion. And he was the stillness that admired her from behind the curtain of his own fear. Fear of saying too much. Fear of ruining everything by making his heart known. He loved her in details. In the way he noticed the way she twirled her necklace when nervous. How she always took her coffee the same way, even when she was trying to switch it up. How she looked away right before she smiled, as if embarrassed by the warmth in her own eyes. But his love lived in whispers. In silent prayers. In daydreams wrapped in what-ifs. He wondered if she knew. If she ever caught the way he looked at her like the moon looks at the tide, always from a distance, always pulling, but never quite touching. One day she asked him, "Why do you always pause before you speak?" He wanted to say, "Because I'm afraid the truth will slip out too fast. Because every word I don't say is a war inside my chest." But instead, he smiled and said, "Just making sure I get it right." And maybe that was love, too. He replayed her question again, "Why do you always pause before you speak?" It lingered. Because she noticed. That was something. But noticing wasn't the same as knowing. And knowing wasn't the same as feeling it back. At home, he sat in the quiet of his apartment, surrounded by little remnants of her, an old movie ticket she gave him, a Polaroid photo she didn't know he still kept, a scarf she once left behind and forgot about. Her absence was everywhere. He opened his notebook. It was filled with letters he'd never sent. Letter. "I saw you today, laughing in that effortless way that makes time stutter. Do you know what it does to me? I wanted to tell you how beautiful you looked, how everything in the world seems to hush when you smile. But I didn't. I laughed with you instead, like always. Like a friend." He closed the notebook, as if shutting the page might quiet his thoughts. But love doesn't go quiet, not really. It just finds other ways to speak, through sighs, through silence, through the ache in your chest that follows you like a ghost. Days passed. Then weeks. And though he kept loving her in his quiet way, something shifted. Not in her, but in him. She called him that afternoon. "Hey!" Her voice came through the phone, warm and breezy. "You free tonight?" He hesitated, because that's what he always did. But this time, something inside him whispered, "Say yes." "Yeah," he replied. "What's up? Come out with me. Just us. It's been a while." They met at their favorite quiet spot, an old bookstore with a cafe tucked in the back, the kind of place where the world slowed down and the air always smelled like paper and cinnamon. She was already there, flipping through a book with her hair pulled up, a soft glow from the reading lamp behind her. When she saw him, she smiled, that smile, the one that unraveled him. "I've been thinking a lot lately," she said, once they settled into their corner with 2 steaming cups between them. Eli's heart picked up. He tried to sip his coffee, but it was too hot, too bitter, too much like everything he was feeling. "You always listen so well," she continued. "Sometimes I wonder what it is you never say." The air in his lungs tightened. She was getting closer to him. And he realized something then. Hiding his heart hadn't protected him. It had only made the love heavier, denser, harder to carry. So he looked at her, really looked, and let the silence stretch, not to hide in it, but to prepare to step through it. "I never say it," he began, his voice low, careful, "because I didn't know if I had the right to, or if I'd ruined something precious." Her gaze didn't move. "But I've been in love with you for a long time," he finally said, his voice trembling at the edges. Quietly. Probably too quietly. "But it's true." The world didn't end. She didn't look away. Instead, she smiled, but softer now. Slower. With something unreadable in her eyes. "You know," she whispered, "I always wondered if I was just imagining it. The way you looked at me. The way you paused. And I'm glad I wasn't wrong." The cafe was quiet, save for the soft turning of pages and the clink of mugs being cleared. But inside Eli, the silence had finally broken. And in its place was something louder than fear, warmer than regret. Eli's hands were in his pockets, unsure, while hers swung freely beside him. "Close. Closer. I used to wait for you to say something, she said, breaking the hush between footsteps. Little moments. After our walks. When you'd linger like you were about to tell me everything. I was, he admitted. She smiled, then bumped her shoulder into his lightly. You didn't. I know. She stopped walking. He did too. They were standing beneath a flickering street lamp, where light and shadow danced across their faces like soft confessions. I didn't say anything either, she said. I guess I thought, if it was real, it would show up louder. Like in the movies. He laughed gently. Mine was more like subtitles no one was reading. She reached out, then, and took his hand, deliberate, warm, real. I was reading, she whispered. I just didn't want to be wrong. And there it was. Later that night, as he wrote in his notebook, still a habit, he didn't write a letter he'd never send. Instead, he wrote, I told her. She heard me. And for once, the words were not too late. Weeks passed. Not everything was cinematic. There weren't rose petals or grand declarations after that night. But there was something better. There was presence. There were soft mornings where she would send him a photo of her coffee and a single word, here. There were evenings where he'd text her a song lyric and nothing else, and she'd text back the next line. Their love became a quiet rhythm, like two people learning the same song from opposite sides of a wall, finally finding the beat together. But love, even the deepest kind, isn't without its shadows. One afternoon, she looked at him across her kitchen table, her brow furrowed, her thumb tracing the rim of her glass. You still get quiet sometimes, she said. I know, he replied. I think it's how I feel safest. She nodded. It's okay. But don't forget I'm not outside your silence anymore. You can let me in. That stayed with him. Later, when she fell asleep on his shoulder during a movie, he kissed her forehead and whispered the words he used to write in his notebook. I see you. 1 month later, they found themselves back at the same bookstore cafe. This time, she pulled him into their usual corner. I want to show you something, she said, setting down a thin, worn journal. It was hers. She slid it across the table. He looked at her. I used to write about you too, she said, eyes gleaming. Even when I thought I was just imagining everything. He opened it. Page after page, there were dates, sketches of hands that looked like his, lines of poetry, tiny confessions written sideways in the margins. Notes that mirrored his own unspoken ones. You kept this? He asked, breath caught in the middle of a sentence. I did. Because I knew. Someday, maybe you'd need proof. That night, Eli read every page of her journal. He took his time with it, each word a thread that stitched together the moments they had shared in silence. The missed chances, the almost confessions, the gentle ache of timing just slightly off. One entry caught his breath. Today, he looked at me like I was a poem he didn't know how to read out loud. I hope someday he tries. He closed the journal and looked across the table at her. She was pretending to be absorbed in her tea, but he could tell she was nervous. You were always braver than me, he said softly. She looked up. No, I was just stubborn. I kept hoping the version of you I saw in my head wasn't a dream. And was he? She smiled, slow and certain. No. He was just quiet, waiting. He reached across the table and took her hand. Not hesitantly. Not by accident. But like someone who had finally learned that love is not something to protect yourself from, it's something to stand inside of. I want to be louder now, he said. In the weeks that followed, they built something. Not perfect, not fairy tale, but intimate. Earned. They argued once, about something dumb, plans cancelled, feelings misread. And for a moment, he retreated, like he always used to. But she followed him. You don't have to disappear just because it's hard, she said. He looked at her, vulnerable and unsure. I don't know how to be mad with someone. I'm used to swallowing it. Then let's learn it together. So they did. They learned that love meant not just the soft stuff, but also the mess. Let's write this together. One line at a time. You and me. No whispers anymore. She traced the edge of the paper with her finger, smiling. And beneath the quiet, she heard it clearly. His heart. No longer whispering, but speaking. Out loud. in her language. By summer, everything was different but not loud. Just alive. Their lives had gently merged like two rivers learning how to flow together without losing their shape. Her toothbrush sat next to his. His hoodie found a permanent home on her couch. They started leaving notes on the fridge instead of texts. And their new shared notebook sat between them most nights, filling slowly with small things that mattered. You made tea this morning and didn't say a word, but I swear I've never felt more seen. You sing under your breath when you think I'm asleep. It's my favorite sound. Let's never stop asking each other how we are even when we think we know. They weren't chasing fire anymore. They were tending a flame. Steady. Warm. Home. But then autumn came and with it, change. She got the call. A job offer in another city. A dream she'd whispered about but never chased. Until now. I haven't said yes, she told him, voice caught between hope and hesitation. But it's everything I wanted. Before us. He stood still, heart pounding with a fear he hadn't felt in months. Not because she was leaving, but because he didn't know where he fit in the dream she was now holding. Do you want me to ask you to stay? He asked, eyes searching hers. No, she said. I want you to want what's next with me. Even if it's messy. He looked at her, all of her brave, unsure, radiant in her wanting. I think I do, he said, voice steady. But I also think I'm scared. So am I, she replied. But fear means it's real, right? He nodded. They didn't pack in a rush. They packed slowly, like saying goodbye to a chapter that had loved them back. The notebook came with them, now heavier, fuller. It lived on their new kitchen counter in a city where the street names were unfamiliar, but the morning still smelled like her perfume and his coffee. Some nights were hard. He missed the quiet corners of their old bookstore. She missed the way the city lights used to hit their old bedroom wall. But they never stopped writing. 1 year later, they returned to the bookstore. The same old cafe tucked in the back. The same worn corner table. But this time, they walked in hand, with no tension in the silence. He pulled the notebook from his bag, now nearly full, and slid it across the table. I think we should start a new one, he said. She smiled, tears at the edge of her lashes. What should the first line be? He took a pen, flipped open to a blank page, and wrote, Love, when whispered for long enough, becomes a voice that never leaves you.
Say